Hello and welcome along to the Panto podcast. A special hello as well to all the new listeners. So can I ask you a favour please, and click the little subscribe button, or there should be a little plus button in the corner so you never miss an episode. As we've got lots of other great guests, both household names and people you may have never heard of before, all with equally amazing stories to tell. You can find these just by having a little look around. And I've got some very great news as well coming up, which is the podcast is now available on YouTube. So please tell your friends who might not know how to work a podcast and maybe a bit scared of this whole finding the app things. It's quite easy. Just tell them it's on YouTube now. Everybody loves YouTube, don't they? And next week I have some very exciting news. So please keep your eyes and ears peeled. All will be revealed. Trust me, it's a huge announcement I'm going to be making. Anyway, that's enough of plugging for one day. Now back to this week's episode with Mr. John Challis. There can't be a person in the UK who have never heard his one-word catchphrase or laugh. He's been an actor involved with Weekly Rep, how circumstances meant he was given one of the most memorable roles in British comedy, and of course, that laugh. In this episode, he gives some amazing stories about his time working and some invaluable advice on the acting profession. John also has 2 volumes of his autobiography available from the website Wigmore Books, and he can be seen touring up and down the country performing his one-man show. So I actually managed to get him in one place, and here is his story. By the way, apologies for it being a little noisy in the background, with the odd sound of crockery here and there. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the latest Panto podcast. Well, my guest this week is Mr. John Challis.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, by the way, a Merry Christmas if we don't meet again. Sorry, you can tell I'm a Spike Milligan fan, can't you? So, anyway, we'll get that out of the way. Thank you all. Next.
So, John, how did your career in acting begin?
Well, having just written, not just written, but having gone through my autobiography and sort of remembering this and that and the other, because it suddenly occurred to me, why the hell did I become an actor in the first place? You know, what was it that sort of drove me? But I guess I always was. Ever since I was a kid, I'd always copied people. I was fascinated by the way people talked, accents, you know, and general demeanour, and I copy them. Constantly getting smacked by my mother for impersonating people. But it was always there, right from the word go, really. And I went to school, and I found I had a sort of facility for mimicry, I suppose. And it made people laugh, you know. I played the usual games with cowboys and Indians and so on, which I enjoyed tremendously. And I was always hired, you know, you get a team together. And I was always hired because I did the most spectacular deaths. I was good at falling out of trees and staggering about, vastly over the top, I think, you know, but it was always there, really. And I'd have little fantasy games of cricket in my parents' back garden, and I'd made a century and beaten the Australians, and we'd won the Ashes. And I could hear the applause as I walked off with my unbeaten century, you know. And then I went to school, and I was in all school plays. The French master, I was hopeless at learning French, but he did see something in me, and he put me in all the school plays. He was the director of all school plays. And I started off, because I was very young, playing a girl. And and I found an old photograph the other day. I was finding stuff for the autobiography, and there I was in a nice long dress and a nice long wig, standing demurely at the top of some stairs, and I didn't look half bad, I can tell you. Oh. You know, yeah. And I was at an all-male boarding school, and I suddenly found I had an awful lot of friends I didn't know I had. You know, but it seemed the most natural thing in the world to be on a stage. And I mean, I couldn't carry on playing glamorous young women for the rest of my life, so I graduated to older women, and then something horrible happened, and I had to start playing men. But it was always there, and. But everybody put me off it, including the headmaster. My parents obviously wanted me to get a safe, steady, secure job. And I started off article to an estate agent's firm in Surrey. But I'd been sitting there for weeks, seemed like months, years, and bored to tears, hopeless. I started impersonating people again and rigging up spurious sort of property deals and so on. And mercifully, I got sacked. I mean, I don't blame him. I would have sacked me as well. But then I was adrift, and my parents were going, "Oh, what's he going?" You know, like any parents worried about their kids. What are they going to do? But I found an advertisement for a travelling children's theatre based in Birkenhead, of all places, of which I'd never heard. I'd been as far north as Sheffield, because that's where my grandparents lived. But Birkenhead, bloody hell, Liverpool. Mind you, Liverpool at that time, it was buzzing, the start of rock and roll, you know, late 50s, early 60s. And I just went along and I saw a nice lady relatively close to where I lived. And she was very impressed by all my silly voices and the fact that I could drive. It's about the only exam I ever passed in my life was my driving test. So I could drive. And they were looking for people who could drive and who could do lots of characters. And I just went off to Birkenhead. I have no idea what I was doing, really. But I suppose it's the equivalent of running away and joining the circus. Because my parents are going, "What are you doing? What about this? What about that? What about that?" All I wanted to do was to get out and see the world. And this is a great way to do it, because we were in a different town every day, playing schools, little shows like Pinocchio and so on. And I loved it. I actually loved being on the road and playing lots of daft characters, you know. So that's how it started. It's a long answer to your question, but that's how I started, yeah.
And when did the panto sort of bug hit you? Did you go and see many pantos as a child?
One or two. Mostly my mother was concerned with an amateur group. They did a panto. I think that was the first one I saw, but I saw Peter Pan. They took me to see Peter Pan in London. It wasn't a panto at that time. It was J.M. Barrie's musical play. But it was that really I loved the theatre. I loved that whole thing. Captain Hook, particularly. I was riveted by Captain Hook. And I suppose the next panto I saw was at some theatre somewhere, and then we started. After the Children's Theatre, I graduated into repertory theatre, and lots of theatre about, and every theatre did its pantomime. So I was in all those, and I loved it because it was just a great chance to express yourself. You know, fantastic costumes, and I was usually playing the villain because I'm not a very nice man, really.
I don't believe a word of
I mean,
that.
Steve Walls thinks I'm a very nice man, but he's wrong. And I always remembered Captain Hook, and I always wanted to play Captain Hook. It took me about 50 years to get to play him, but but yeah, I've been not particularly pantomime, but the theatre generally was what I loved. It's sort of like a moving chocolate box cover, you know. What the hell's going to happen next? It's all that, you know. So that's I suppose when I first became aware of it, and I suppose the last 26 years I've done a pantomime every Christmas.
So that kind of coincided with the whole Only Fools and Horses.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't be doing anything in those days during that time of the year. So yeah, pantomime was always up for grabs. Yeah, and of course, if you had anything about you, you know, if you were like the wonderful Billy Pearce, for instance, you know, and you had this wonderful contact with the kids and so on, you know, a funny guy. But my anger was that I hated kids. So no, not really. No, but that was the angle I had to come from. But you know, if you're a juvenile, you've got a lovely voice and you look fantastic, you know, that's your area. But mine was always the villain of the piece because I suppose because I'm tall, I've got a dark face and a bit threatening maybe to some people. Not to people who know me well, of course.
Of course. You never then wanted to be sort of the romantic lead, or?
Oh yes. in early days in rep, I had a couple of parts as a sort of romantic juvenile lead, but I was hopeless, just hopeless. I felt so uncomfortable. I was only really comfortable putting a wig on, cause, and voicing being a terribly old man, something, those characters. It's always what fascinated me, to be somebody else. And the dream was that I'd appear on stage playing one of these characters, and my mother would come along and watch me and not recognise me. That to me was where I wanted to get to.
And did that ever happen?
No.
Oh.
So almost. Almost. She a couple of occasions, because but for the war, she might have become a professional herself, I suppose. But I came along the first year of marriage, and so she had to look after me, and there was a war on, and so she never went back to it, except in this amateur way. But she always, I think, hankered after that life. So, particularly when I was at the National Theatre of the RSC, she'd come and she was quite critical, really. But a couple of times she said, "I almost forgot you were my son." I thought, that's, some certain plays, certain parts I did, particularly in repertory, because you had to do a different play every week, practically. So there was a lot of opportunity to explore these characters.
A lot of remembering, I'm sure, as well.
Oh yes, I know. Every actor of my generation, we're all puzzling about how we ever learnt the words. We grew up through rep, because, as I say, it was weekly rep, and we'd do big plays. I mean, we did The Tempest by William Shakespeare in a week, while playing something else at night. I mean, how we ever learnt the words, I have no idea. And there's one famous occasion when I was playing Jack the Ripper at night and rehearsing for the Archangel Gabriel during the day. But schizophrenia sort of suited me, really. I loved that. Whoa, I don't know, who's coming through the door now? It's Steve Walls. Oh, no! But that's what fascinated me, the chameleon. I was fancying myself as a chameleon, being able to turn my hand to anything. But of course, on screen, you've got what you've got. So the parts you think you'd love to play, you're not necessarily going to be cast for because you look the way you do. So that was a lesson to be learned. It's okay in weekly rep because you're a long distance away and you can get away. You can become anything because you've got a broad stage to operate on, and people, as I say, a lot further away. On screen, it's and it's looking straight at you.
So the TV career, how did that happen then, from rep to TV?
Well, I did sort of.
Were you spotted, or
why are you wearing that leopard skin? So that's why you're spotted. Sorry, Spike Milligan again. No, I did about 4 or 5 years, I suppose, of rep all over the place. Eventually got a part in the West End, a small part. But I'd also auditioned with the Royal Shakespeare Company, which was an ambition of mine, and I got in there, and again, only playing small parts at the supporting roles. I was there for a year. And then suddenly, by this time it was 1966, but suddenly television was coming over the horizon. Lots of telly was being made. Because before then, not everybody had a telly. It seems extraordinary to think about it now. But as the 60s went on, more and more people had a telly, so more and more production was going on. And that's where you wanted to be. The exposure, the money was better, everything. And of course it was the coming thing. So you found yourself, by this time, I'd had 2 agents already, but I was going up for a lot of shows, some of which I got, some of which I didn't. But then I got a very nice part in one of the new soap operas, I suppose, called The Newcomers. And this must have been about 67, something like that. And I was very excited about that. And then I met the Beatles, and I got a job with the Beatles, but I couldn't do it because I was already hooked to the newcomers. I did about 5 or 6 episodes of it, I suppose. Playing a sort of a Jewish rag trade, big sort of expensive sort of, nice big car, right up my street, really. But of course, I was having no experience really on the screen. I was vastly over the top because I was doing it in a theatrical way. But of course, in television, you've got to pare it down. And I went for an interview with the director, and we got on terribly well because it was quite sort of intimate, really. Sort of talking across the table. So the whole character was like this. But as soon as we came to do it, I went like this. And she said, "You should have told me you've never done television before." And so she kept me behind after school, really, and sort of taught me about television acting. Because I hadn't been to drama school at all, so I didn't know anything about it. And eventually I started getting the message. Then I went too far the other way and did absolutely nothing, and was very boring. Because then I got a job in Z Cars, playing a policeman, and very dull I was. I mean, softly, another police who's playing another policeman. But it was really quite difficult to find the right level, because my instincts were all theatrical. And eventually I sort of got to a compromise, I suppose, and then I just started getting regular sort of cameo roles. A lot of villains, a lot of tough guys, a lot of policemen, and occasionally an occasional vicar. I was quite good at vicars, really. Don't know.
I can't picture you as a vicar.
No, I can't. See, but if you start doing vicar, your eyebrows go up. My problem is my eyebrows do that, and I look quite fierce. So I had to do eyebrows up acting quite a lot. So that kept happening, and eventually I had a bit of a crisis, really, and I got a bit disillusioned with the profession. I thought I want to do something typical me. I want to go and do something else now. So I opened a garden centre, which you do, of course. But I'd always been interested in gardening. I just wanted to learn more about it. And it was a disaster. I got in with the wrong guy, who left me with a debt. We had to borrow money from the bank to buy the lease of this shop, and it was the year of a big drought, so it was the worst possible year. And I'm no businessman, but I learned a lot about gardening, so that was a disaster. But luckily, a director I'd worked for several times cast me in a big Doctor Who story with Tom Baker called The Seeds of Doom, 6-parter. Great fun. I mean, it's one of the happiest jobs I ever did, I think. And so we did lots of running about, and had a great story, that. But it sort of gave me a sort of a kickstart into a new phase, really, because it reignited my love for the profession, I suppose. In fact, this is what I'm good at, I entertain people. That's what I do. I got a part in a Fringe play, which Tom Stoppard came to see, and then he asked me to be in one of his plays, and it went to South Africa, for instance, just on when the apartheid was sort of falling, and then I took over the part in the West End, and then became part of something called the British American Repertory Company, and finished up on Broadway doing this Tom Stoppard play, and I'm thinking, I can't believe I'm here. I've been on the stage at Stratford, I've been in the West End, and here I'm on Broadway. I think, Christ. And it was just amazing. New York, the first time ever in America, you can imagine. And we went on tour, and it was very successful. And I thought that's where the future lay. You know, a lot of people saying nice things, as they do in America. Come and see my agent in LA. You know, I'm sure he'll have something for you. I'm sure he might have something for you. And you go, no, sort of nothing happens. So you go, and the agent in London's trying to get hold of me, and eventually does, and said, look, been offered a part in a new comedy series called Citizen Smith. Are you coming back to do it, or what? I said, what is it? He said, it's a policeman. I went, oh, another bloody policeman. I've done so many of them. But I thought, well, I've got to keep my hand in case things don't work out in America, and also I'd run out of money. So I came back to do this part. It's a nice part in Citizen Smith, which of course was written by John Sullivan. And he came up to me afterwards. He said, I really like what you've done with that character. He said, I'm going to try and use it again one day. And the reason for that was I based the character on somebody I used to know in a pub in southwest London where I used to live, who fascinated me. And again, I'm copying people, you know. Because he had this way of talking. Oh, was that for me?
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
He had this curious way of talking, you know, his way of making his points. You say, it's a complete sort of fantasist Walter Mitty character. And I thought, well, that's what I'll do. I'll try and put some aspects of that character into this policeman. And that's what John Sullivan hooked onto. Anyway, I said, thank you very much. I didn't think anything more. I was at the National Theatre at the time, trying to become a serious actor. No, Tom Stoppard had written another play, which I was in at the National, which was great. But then suddenly this script popped through the door, about a year later, I guess. And it was a second episode in a new series called Only Fools and Horses. Same director, producer, and the same writer, of course. So would I come along and do this, another little cameo part, as a second-hand guardian? So I connected the two up, and I went, oh, it all came true then. So off I went for just one day, one afternoon's filming with David Jason and Nick Lyndhurst. And it was the scene about an exploding Cortina, you know, which the boy she was trying to sell. And would you look after my E-type as present for my bit on the side, you know, and, and it made me laugh. I thought it was a very funny script. And so it was lucky I came back from America, really, to do Citizen Smith. Right time, right place, you know. And then here we are still talking about it, you know, sort of 30 odd years later. It's amazing. So that's how it happened. That's how that's all that stuff happened. By now 50 years in the business, and I've seen a lot of stuff, been around the block a few times, but been very lucky, really.
The character then of Boise, how much of that would you say is you?
I think, you know, I think every actor, whatever, since I don't think anybody ever completely loses themselves. And you know, here's one of the, let's hear about Peter Sellers, who was brilliant. I mean, you know, he was my hero because he could, I mean, particularly vocally, he was absolutely brilliant. But you can physically, you can see all his characteristics because we've all got particular ways of getting effects. You know, whether it's Peter Sellers, whether it's David Jason, whether it's me, whether it's anybody, really. We know what works after all this time. Should do, anyway. And you can just see those, that's the way Peter Sellers does that. So he's never completely, you can't completely submerge yourself in the character, I don't think. But of course you can put all sorts of stuff on it, like a walk, like a voice. It was always a voice that fascinated me. So that's where I'd start from. But someone like Alec Guinness, who's another hero of mine, always started from the walk. And he said the walk gave him everything. But I've always, because that was his fascination, I think. And that's what he was terribly good at. But so when Alec Guinness finished up being asked similar questions, well, all these wonderful characters you play, Sir Alec, I mean, how much of yourself is in these characters? He said, I don't really know. He said, it's quite possible I don't exist at all. And it's sort of that, you know. But it's got to be something of you in there, characteristics, you know. And Boise developed over all that time. And because we had a great writer who wrote for us, you know, and he picked up on the characteristics in those actors and developed them, and they became then part of the characters.
And the laugh.
The laugh?
Where did the laugh, Boise's laugh, come from?
I know, what laugh is that?
I can't do an impression in
what
front
sort of laugh are you talking about? Well, the laugh, again, I nicked it from somebody else, really. But it was, the strange thing about it was actually a woman.
Never.
Exactly. It's in the same pub that I saw this guy in. And she was one of those that you used to see them quite often, not so much now. And I always say pubs are full of women with a past and men with no future. Still went to the pub too often, personally, but never mind. But you used to see it quite often, very often, they're just sitting alone at a table, probably with a bottle of Mackerson or something, and sort of not communicating with the rest of the. Do you think what happened? What happened? They used to think, what happened? What's the story? You know, and you want to sit down beside and say, tell me your story. Of course, it never happened. But there was one of these in the pub, and she was there on a regular basis. But her particular characteristic was that after long periods of sitting there saying absolutely nothing, she'd suddenly go like this. And it became so famous that people used to come to the pub specially to hear this. And they come in, they stand at the bar, you know, with a couple of pints or so, drink a pint, order another one, waiting for this, nothing happening, but there she was, halfway through the second pint, and they'd all burst out laughing, drink up the pint and leave. And so I remembered this, and scripts came up quite early on, I think, and it said Boise laughs, I think probably at one of his own jokes or something. And I just did my version of this. And everybody laughed and fell about and said, keep it in. I mean, have you ever wished you hadn't started something? Because it's followed me around ever since. And it was complete accident. It's just complete improvisation, you know.
It's like your catchphrase, isn't it, really?
Yes, it is, yes. Come along, Marlene. That's it. And groups of people do it on quite a regular basis. It sounds like a flock of sheep sometimes, because they're all doing it. Not very well. But it's difficult to do. People ask me to do it, and then I say I'm going to charge them money, and then they change their mind. No, but they... it's difficult to do from a standing start. You've got to... As I say, the main thing about it is it's usually he thinks he said something terribly funny or witty, and he laughs at it. So it's got that follow. So it comes... It's like a dash. Yes, I went down there, I bought a goldfish. It's still swimming around. You know. But if you do it from nowhere, when you start from nothing, it's very difficult. I find, anyway. It's got to be sort of organic. I think that's the word I'm looking for.
When did the Big Pantos sort of come knocking? Was it during the time of Fools and Horses?
Yeah, I suppose this run started in 1990, and by that time Only Fools was flying. I mean, it was getting 15, 16 million viewers, so it was quite big. And a guy called Tony Cartwright, who was an entrepreneur at the time, putting on a lot of pantomimes, suddenly phoned my agent and said, is he available? Does he want to? And I said, well, yeah, because the money was quite good, to be honest. And my
that helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. My name is quite high up the bill. So I went to Guildford. That was, and that was the start of it. Really, I suppose I was playing. What was I playing? Baron Hardup, which is not my sort of part at all, because it's not a very good part, I don't think, unless it's written up properly. But it was a bit of a shambles, pantomime, I have to say. But a lot of people came to see it, and they got paid okay. And then somebody saw me. Somebody I'd worked for before saw me in pantomime. Said, "Oh, you're doing pantomime. Do you want to come do one for me?" The following year, and by this time I'd graduated to Ugly Sister, and I never played Ugly Sister at all. Never put a frock on since school. And I thought, well, I'll have a go at that. Yeah. And my sister in it was actually called Freddie Pine, who used to be president of Equity, and I think he was in Emmerdale for ages. So he was quite a well-known name. And he was sort of short and quite wide, and I'm quite tall and quite thin. So we went together quite well. But crucially we worked together quite well. Lots of changes, and I sort of quite enjoyed it, but I wasn't quite comfortable with the frock on. And then I was sort of slightly ruined by the fact. Actually, no. I did another for the same people. I went off and did it with Freddie Pine again in a different place the following year. And then somebody came along and said, "Do you know?" I said, "I'm watching you." He said, "So reminded me of your mother." And I went, "That's it." Took the frock off, and I've never worn one since. Because I hadn't realised it. What I'd done is taken all the worst characteristics of my mother and put them into this, because it made me think about it. And I'd done the whole thing. Not the whole thing, but I picked up, which is what I'd always done. I picked up characteristics of people and used them. And there I was, looking quite like my mother as well. So I thought, well, anyway, as I say, generally speaking, I wasn't quite comfortable doing it, and it's bloody hard work. So so many changes. So that was that, and then I started playing the villain. The Younger Sisters are villains, really, but then I started playing the Abanazas and King Rats and Captain Hooks all over the place, and that was much more comfortable. Usually just one costume. That's how you view things. How many changes are there? But it's quite interesting, sort of thinking back. And again, if I think of the autobiography, these things pop up because you hadn't really thought about it, but the remembrance you have, the memory you have. Oh, that's why that happened. And, oh yes, because he said that. And it's wonderful I'd advise anybody to write their autobiography because it brings up so much stuff that you haven't really thought about properly. I mean, of course, a relationship with your parents and your brother and your sister and all that as well. But in terms of the profession, it was really quite cathartic.
Do you find yourself adding more to the autobiography as you get on and you think more about it?
Oh yes, I sort of make things up as well. No. Yeah, you do. I mean, I do this one-man show all over the place, and yeah, things do come like, God, yes, I remember that. Yes, and so you tell that bit of the story. You can be telling a story for months on the road, but then something else occurs to you, and you can add that name. They'll know that name, and so you add that little experience you had with that person, or something like that. Yeah.
Do you remember the very first time you went out getting the booze as the baddie? Do you thrive on the booze?
The booze.
The booze.
Oh yes, it's one of my
B-O-O-S.
Yes, it's one of my lines is because I always boo. I see you're still on the booze, or something. You see, you just can't give up the booze, can you? They'll go. Boo! Yes. Oh no, you know you're doing all right if every time you come on they give you a hard time. And you can interact with them quite a bit, and you think about things along the way. Of course, now having said that, I can't think of a damn thing. Oh yes, well, I came up with something. This wonderful children's charity, Children in Need. Well, I've invented a new charity. It's called Who Needs Children. Sometimes I get a round of applause. From dads, usually from the dads. Yeah, I get all that. But the kids are going, boo,
But he's a lovable baddie. Boise as well, because obviously you put a lot of Boise. I've seen you in Panto many times, and you bring a heavy amount of Boise into that. But Boise was always sort of a lovable villain.
Yeah, I never realised he was lovable at all until I started getting letters saying how much people loved the character. And I'm going, what? He's awful. He's such a pompous prick, dreadful misogynist. I'm like, oh. He was saying, oh. So obviously I've done something wrong somewhere. But no, if you say how much of you is in Boise, well, there it is. I mean, people, I don't convince anybody really. They know I'm as soft as a brush, really.
What about your favourite people that you worked with over the years in pantomime?
What, apart from Steve Walls, you mean?
Well, has he given you a bung?
He might have. What, in pantomime, you mean?
Yes.
Yes. Well, Billy Pearce was... I first worked with Billy in Wolverhampton, doing an Aladdin there, and I was Abanazar, and Billy, of course, was... So what Billy was really, but he was bouncing around all over the stage doing mad things, and we just got on very well, and we were supposed to do some more together, because Billy's the king of Bradford, quite rightly. So, and we were going to do Bradford together, but it sort of didn't work out because Kudos decided they wanted to do something else, do it with somebody else. But we did finish up in Bradford. 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. That can't be 4. It must be 3. With Billy, of course, Lisa Riley, who I'd not worked with before. She's a piece of work, I can tell you. And and Jake Canuso, who I just worked with in Benidorm. You see, so they put us together in this. And Jake came on looking fantastic as usual, doing his flamenco with Lisa, which was a real high point in the show. And I was just shuffling about the stage, being the giant's henchman in Jack and the Beanstalk, and being very nasty to the princess. So Flesh Creep, his name is. So got to work at Bradford. That was the first time I worked there at the Alhambra, which is a fantastic theatre. It really is one of the great theatres, I think. So that was a favourite one, and I mentioned those early ones with Freddie Pine, which were great fun, and Wayne Sleep. I did the crew one was with Wayne Sleep and Peggy Mount, and Peggy Mount and Wayne Sleep did a sort of pas de deux, which was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Because, Peggy was such a big lady, and Wayne's this tiny little sort of flibbity gibbets dancing all around. I mean, it was hilarious. And it was the same management, and I worked with Wayne again in Guildford. So he was terrific. I mean, I think he was absolutely quite sort of waspish, but quite funny in a camp way as well. And so that was good. And who else? Let me think. God, my mind's gone completely blank. Also, I did one in Bath with Rodney Bewes. Remember Rodney Bewes? And who was having a bit of a tough time because he wanted his Likely Lads repeated, and James Boland wasn't too happy about it. So he was a bit of a grump. But great theatre. A lot of it's to do with where you are. You know, I guess Bath is a great theatre. It does depend, and I suppose it's the demographic of the people who are in those particular places. I suppose, I don't know. Sue Holderness, who plays Marlene, and myself were cast together in Richmond, Surrey, with Alec Jones. And as somebody said in the papers, it's the wonderful thing about pantomime is you only ever get these combinations of people in pantomimes. I mean, Alec Jones, you know, his image, and Boycie and Marlene, you think, how does that work? But the awful thing about that one was that Aled ripped his Achilles tendon in the dress rehearsal and never got on. Terrible disappointment, because he was going to be a very good Jack in Jack and the Beanstalk. It's ideal. It's a tough little, because he's quite a, you know, it's, of course, got a great voice and a great image and so on. But the thing about we were originally cast in it, and then there was a big pause, and the agent came back saying, oh wait, they've had a rethink, and they don't think Boycie and Marlene are quite the right sort of people for the pantomime in Richmond. And we went, what? It's as if nobody in Richmond or those sort of areas watched Only Fools and Horses, which of course they do. And eventually they were persuaded to cast it, but so we started off thinking, oh, they don't really want us then. Then Aled Achilles went, and we finished up with his understudy, who was fine, completely different to Aled, completely different sort of Jack. But there was so to answer that question, I think it does, in terms of some of the managements, it makes a difference. Are people going to come and see these two? Are we going to sell enough tickets? They come and see Aled, that's all right. Okay, well, we'll put them with Aled, so da-da-da. Then Aled's disappeared, and it was sort of slightly disappointing, because suddenly we were top of the bill, which they didn't intend.
And how were ticket sales?
Fine. I mean, as far as I know, absolutely normal, really. You know, because pantomime is pantomime, and people go and see pantomime whoever's in it. I think in a lot of cases. I mean, obviously, some people will attract more people than others. But last year, I was at Nottingham with Joe Pasquale, who I'd not met before, not worked together with before, and that was an experience. Little Joe, and extraordinary sort of act he's got, really. But you know, I sort of use that energy. These comical people coming on and getting all the laughs. I say, when are the comics coming on? You know. All these little comics scuttling about, trying to get laughs, trying to get on the right side of the audience. Yeah. Steve Walls, for instance. Oh, well, I'm absolutely lovely, and no, sweet, no, funny. No, you're not. You're a pain in the bloody ass. So you can use a bit of that sort of energy. And in fact, Kudos people came along and said they liked me and Joe together, and said, oh, we must keep you two together. So we had a conversation about it, decided, you know, we could work with each other again. Okay. So I thought, oh, that's nice. Next year. And they split us up. Oh. So Joe's in Milton Keynes, and I was supposed to go somewhere I didn't really want to go. It was a bit too far away. And so I finished up in Malvern, back with the UK. But no, it's great, because you suddenly meet these people, and on, you know, doing Benidorm, it's just great meeting with people that you've been watching and you've heard about, and to do a couple of scenes on Benidorm with the Chuckle Brothers. It was a great thrill for me, you know, because they're funny guys, you know, and people said what a delight they were, and indeed they were. I don't know how good the scenes were, but
they were brilliant. They really were brilliant.
And then Barry's passed on, and you think, how did that happen? That's not fair. But still in touch with Paul. So it's great. It's great you find yourself working with all these terms, completely forgetting that you're a term yourself, really.
Do you enjoy then the presence of comedians more than thesps?
I've always admired comedians, some more than others, obviously. Particularly the stand-ups. I mean, to get up there in front of what could be a hostile crowd and actually win them over, and just with your patter and your personality, I think is an extraordinary talent. And like an awful lot of other things, you think I can do that? You can't.
Have you ever had a go?
No. I go, as I do my one-man show and I tell stories, but there's a bit of observation in it. And, this happened to me and that happened. So those are the stories I tell. But I'm no joke teller.
You never fancied doing it even when you were younger?
No, I didn't. Because I found it really terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I don't know how they do it. But I met Jo Brand sort of 2 or 3 times, and what she went through as a woman, and particularly the sort of woman she is. I mean, how she got through those early days. Because some of her stories are extraordinary. But she's tough as old boots, and because it's very unusual for a woman, to get to where she's got to. But of course, she's a writer as well. She has an extraordinary life experience, and that makes a big difference. Because you can tap into that, as I can tap into my story. I mean, in very truncated forms, but sort of on people I've met along the way, and things that have happened to me, and observations about it, and about the profession generally. Well, that's one thing about the show, which I find quite complimentary, really, is that people afterwards, because I meet the people after the show, and people say not only is it amusing, but also it's interesting. Interesting? But no, it's in the way the television works, and some of the stories I tell, which aren't particularly funny, but I can tell the audience is sort of riveted to it. You can always tell if they're bored, they're going to get restless and start moving about. But that's fascinating to me, that it doesn't have to be funny. But I've always wanted people to laugh at school. That's how I got through school, I think, was I could always make people laugh.
Do you find the one-man show then quite therapeutic for yourself?
Yeah, I suppose so. I was telling a personal story, and it's very gratifying, when a story you tell works and people laugh, sometimes applaud, and it is sort of therapy. I mean, I don't talk about great problems I've had as I do in the autobiography. It's quite warts and all, the autobiography. But that doesn't come into the show. It's how life. It's a life story, I suppose. How life changed from phase to phase. How we start off and how we get to where we are today.
The character then in Benidorm that came about. That's kind of still the Boise-esque kind of character.
Yeah, a bit of a dodgepot, only it was property this time, and I think that's, we did the spin-off series, The Green Grass, so Boise went on beyond Only Fools and Horses. And one of the writers on that was a guy called Darren Litton, and I think he wrote most of one episode of The Green Grass. And Benidorm was on for 10 years, for heaven's sake, and he asked for me a couple of times over that 10 years, and I couldn't do it. But eventually, about 4 or 5 years ago, I went and did a couple of episodes out there, Benidorm, and again, the character caught on. Eventually, finished up marrying Joyce Temple Savage, and I was hoping that was going to go on, because it was an interesting new sort of character to. Well, it's me, really. because ITV in their wisdom decided to take it off. Thank you very much. But I think Darren's seen Only Fools and Horses, and John Sullivan was his great hero. He wanted to write like John Sullivan. Of course, he's a different person, and but you can see sort of shades of John in a lot of his plotting, and his joke. He loves the jokes. It's all pretty camp, you know. I mean, it's a very different sort of area. So that was an experience. That was an experience and a half. That was.
And filming in the sun as well, I'm sure, was enjoyable.
Yes, got far too hot. I mean, at this time of year, we a couple of times we were filming out there, and that's something about the heat in Spain. It really sort of presses you down, you know. But doing the last series there, we went out. Carol came with me. We were out there for about 5 months, which is fantastic. Doing a bit of work, and a week off, and then we're going to see some friends here and some friends down there and explore the countryside. And fantastic year. So we're looking forward to another one of those. And then suddenly, the rug's pulled from under our feet. Completely unexpected. Because, you know, the numbers were there, and as people said, what other comedy have ITV got? I don't know why they've taken it off. I suppose because the new Broom got in there and wanted to do his own stuff and get rid of the stuff that had been on for so long. You know. Big shock there.
Real shame.
Yeah.
And the stage show has been huge for it.
Stage show was enormous. Yes, absolutely.
Did you go and see it?
Oh yeah, I saw it twice. And my God, they were touring for 9 months. I mean, the money that show must have made, because it was packed everywhere it went. Extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. And so, I mean, on the back of that, I mean, you'd think, well, maybe they might reconsider and do another series. I don't know, because everybody talks about it. You know, when I'm out on the road selling the books and so on, not only do people talk about Only Fools, but also Benidorm. And the Green Grouse, so been quite lucky, really.
Which series would you most like to see come back? Only Fools, even for a one-off, or Green Grass, or Benidorm?
God, it's very difficult, really.
Or would you like one of each?
Yes, that'd be quite good. Yes. Or a series of each. Green Grass is interesting because you know, when John talked to Sue and I about it, of course we're going, bloody hell, didn't see it coming at all. So we were very flattered that he thought the characters were strong enough to do their own series. But pretty scared, really, because spin-offs don't have a great track record at all, particularly in this country. And how do you follow something like Only Fools and Horses, which means so much to so many people? But, of course, you've got to have a go. And so we did, and extraordinary. They wanted to film it all around here. And it's the luckiest thing in the world. So we had four and a half years. So great fun. But then suddenly they took that off as well. I think it's me. I'm the problem.
No, it's not. It's not at all.
But again, they some new regime in the BBC came in and they kept us waiting for about 6 months. Having originally said they wanted a 5th series. Everyone's going, wow! But then our producer, Gareth Gwenlyn, sort of phoned up and said, oh, hold on, they're not confirming it yet. And it was 2008, the credit crunch, and a lot of things were put to one side while they decided what to do. New regime came in at the BBC and went, don't think so, really. And we were off. And again, you're thinking, why did that happen? So now we go, when I'm out on the road, you know, people talk about Green Grass because they keep repeating it. And people have caught up with it quite late. I didn't watch it at the time because you know, I missed Delboy and Rodney. So it was quite good, wasn't it? Yes.
Would you come back if they offered you an Only Fools and Horses again?
It depends. The trouble is with John, no longer with us. It's very difficult to say. It would have to be a very good script, I think. I think David feels the same about that, as we talked about it briefly when we were doing some filming some months ago. Nick, I don't know what Nick Lyndhurst feels about it at all, because he's pretty incommunicado, really. But I think if it was, all clustered together in the Nag's Head. But the trouble with that is that Kenny MacDonald's not there playing Mike. Buster's not here, obviously, and neither is Trigger, because Roger unbelievably sort of passed away. So it'd be sort of Only Fools and Horses light, I think, a bit. But having said that, if somebody came up with a great script, I think certainly look at it and sort of probably phone each other up and say, what do you think? And because I mean the desire for it's out there, but the worry is that it would be not as good as people remember and grew to love so much, So I think it'd be quite difficult.
The ensemble was the body of the work, really.
It became that, yeah. Yes, it did.
But we'd love another Jolly Boys outing. We really would love that. I don't know how we could, maybe for Del Boy's 80th or something like that, or
have to get another coach.
Well, so many people feel strongly about that episode as well. Was that your favourite?
One of them, yeah. Excuse me. I am often asked what's my favourite episode. It's very difficult to say. I mean, there were so many wonderful moments in it. Obviously, the two most famous ones of the chandeliers and Del falling through the bar, which I don't think was particularly funny because I wasn't in them. I think the funniest bits were the bits I was in.
Of course.
The card playing one, Losing Streak, the second one I ever did, has turned out to be a big favourite. Relatively recently, Johnny Boy's outing has been a favourite for a very long time. And strangely, Miami Twice seems to... A lot of people coming up saying they love Miami Twice, and that was considered too long, I think, by a lot of people. Because it was an hour, it was 2.5 hours altogether, split into two bits. But a lot of people thought it was too long.
My favourite joke in that was, if you remember the second episode, but the beginning part, when he's taking the photo.
Yeah.
And I never noticed this till a while ago when the guy nicks his camera. And then you cut to the next scene and he's obviously caught the guy and he's got that guy's camera as well. Yeah. I never noticed that. So obviously he's got hold of the guy, given him a good hiding.
Good scene too,
and then pinched his camera as well. And so many people have never realised that. And that's, I think, John's genius as well with it.
Yeah, so many people say that. They watch it over and over again. And they keep picking up on stuff that they haven't noticed before. It's all these details. And that's it's become a fascination for people. Yeah. But I love the bit where you found out what Boyce's first name was, in the seance scene. I am here, and we're all sitting around the table with our fingers. I mean, you can imagine that.
The read-throughs, that must have been fun, weren't they?
Hilarious, yeah. Yeah, the read-throughs were very funny because you heard the characters saying the lines. You've read it, you think, oh yeah, you can imagine it. But actually hearing Roger doing Trigger's lines, or Dal and Rodney and their bits, Paul Barber as Denzel, and he's actually, like this, and it was very funny. And of course he'd finish up in hysterics at the end of it. But then, of course, the hard work starts because you've got to work it out technically, and suddenly it becomes very unfunny because technically it's quite difficult. And then, well, you think it's unfunny, but of course it's always going to be funny. Yeah.
Well, that's a serious business comedy.
Absolutely. We deserve a medal.
What would you say would be your advice to budding character actors who are listening to this right now?
Well, I'd say the world is very different from when I started. of course. But if it's in you, as it was in me, I discovered, I was put off it, and I thought, oh well, maybe they're right. And I had this false start, which I talked about. If it's in you, and you must go for it. And get it. Either make it work for you, or get it out of your system. Because there are so many people around who said, I wish I'd tried that, I wish I'd done, I always wanted to do that, and they haven't done it. It's too late. So what I'd say is, if it's in you and you enjoy it, get a copy of Contact, which is the Bible, really. It's got all the agents, all the studios, everything, the wardrobe and everything to do with the profession. Leaf through that and write to everybody. It's in the area that you want to be. Because a lot of people, for instance, go to drama school and they think they want to act, and then they get there and they find that they don't want to. But they're much more interested in production or television technology or whatever it is. So go for everything. Write to all the drama schools and go there and learn. It's a showcase too. And I think that's the way to do it. And if people are very lucky and they get picked up and get straight into a soap opera and spend the next 20 years in EastEnders or something, that's what you want. That's fine, but it happens to very few people. And you've got to learn to live with rejection, or what appears to be rejection, because it is a rejection business. And you'll go up for a lot of parts, you think, God, I'd love to do that, and they'll choose somebody else. Don't take it personally, because it'll destroy you if you do. That's all. I've seen people absolutely destroyed by it, because they get so angry they cannot work out why they haven't got this part. It happened in the Royal Shakespeare Company very early on in the early 60s. There was an actor there who got a very good part there and was fine, absolutely fine. But he didn't get another part during the season, and he got more and more furious about it. He couldn't understand why he wasn't given that part, because he'd had a success in one of the plays. Because they do about four or five different plays during the season. And I met him later, and he was actually working in a show in London, and he was still even more furious, And it was a good production, and he was very good in it. And I said, "Well, well done." He said, "Well, it's work," and his whole attitude was, and he said, "Actually, completely destroyed it." In terms of that, he turned up on telly a couple of times in sort of little cameo roles, but nowhere near what he felt he deserved. And there's an awful lot of deserving people out there who actually never get a break. But if you love what you do and you're good at what you do and you want to do it, you've got to go through all that. But do it. Don't finish up going, I wish I had a go at that. People in a sort of what they view as a dead-end job. I remember when I was very young, and a girlfriend of mine had an uncle who was a very famous bank manager, Coots Bank or something, a big, really successful bank manager. And the weekends, when we saw him, he put on opera, Italian opera, and after a few whiskies, he started to sing in this sort of fractured tenor voice, along with his favourite bits of opera, and then burst into tears. And I said to him one day, why did you burst into tears? He said, because I never tried to be a singer, and that's all I ever wanted to do. Different generation, though. Different generation, and it's very difficult for a lot of young people, because their parents wouldn't let them do things. Another girlfriend's grandfather was a brilliant piano player, jazz piano player, and he wanted to go to New York playing piano. Wasn't allowed to, because he had to become part of the family firm, furniture business in Sunderland. And again, he sometimes played the piano and he still had some of it left, and that's all he wanted to do. In fact, he loved the idea of New York so much, he did a complete map of the underground system, New York. He knew every station, which train went where. But his family wouldn't let him go. And it's those stories, that haunt me, really.
Is there anything you wish you'd done differently, or would still like to do?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to play cricket for England and win the Ashes.
Well, you did when you were a child.
Yeah, I did. Yes, I did. Yeah. No, I didn't think so. No. You grow up with a sort of particular characteristics of your personality, and I suppose I could have worked harder and been more dedicated to it. But it was always just great for me because it was something I didn't take particularly seriously. It's just something I did, and I found a way of earning a living by not having to work too hard. So, if I'm being hard on myself, I would say I should have done better, should have worked harder. If I'm being kind to myself, I say I could have done better. But,
You've done all right for us as the viewing public, I know.
Well, yeah. Well, it seemed, no, I've been lucky, I say. To have got to here was brilliant.
Well, this leaves me with one last question for yourself.
One last question, yes.
I would like, please, I ask this for every guest, your dream pantomime. So you can be in it, you can be in the stalls watching it, you can choose your cast, they could be alive or deceased.
Or dead.
And the production and the venue.
Blimey.
But it's going to be a pantomime.
Going to be a pantomime, right? God. Yeah. Yes, I do like to do the London Palladium pantomime, obviously. Let's see if Julian Clary, is he really like that? Surely not. Yes, I mean, I got a chance actually to play at the Palladium and I couldn't do it. This was in God, what's his name? Caractacus, the one with the car. What's it called?
Chitty Bang
Chitty
Bang.
Chitty Bang Bang. Yes, that's right. I was asked to do the child catcher in that, but it was sort of tied up. I had to sign for too long, and I lived down here, and I didn't want to sort of go up to London, really. So, but the Palladium was something I would have liked to have played, I have to say. So maybe it's the Palladium, I suppose. But it would be. I think the thing about Peter Pan, it's been hijacked by pantomime, really. So it's not really a pantomime. But I'd love to play Captain Hook at the Palladium, I think. So yes, I would be in it. I would be playing Captain Hook. Who else do I get? Who should I have? Oh, I don't know. It's terribly difficult. I'm going to upset somebody, aren't I?
Well, that happens. They won't take it personally, I'm sure.
No, well, I've had a few SMEs, so I don't know. Who could I have as a SME? I don't know. But it's terribly difficult.
You could have several SMEs on different days, if that would be easier for you. Because I don't want you upsetting anybody.
No, that's true. That's the way. Yeah, that's it.
You could have to do the entire run, and they have to do just one day a week.
I think without having done Benidorm, I think Tony Maudsley played Kenneth. The camp hairdresser. I think it'd be a great SME. I think he's doing it. I think he's actually doing Peter Pan this year in Liverpool. So I think he'd be great. I think we'd work together quite well, really. I mean, if I could control what he's doing. But yeah, I'd love to. I suppose I'd just love to do Captain Hook and I'd have played him. I think that'd be terrific.
Who'd be your Tinkerbell?
My Tinkerbell, Lisa Riley. No, not Lisa Riley. Who could I have? There's Tinkerbell. Oh God, this is so difficult.
It could be
Kylie Minogue.
Kylie.
Yeah. Kylie's great. I like Kylie. Yeah.
Your Peter.
Peter. Peter Pan, a horrid little man. Horrid little Peter Pan. Lots of Peter Pans.
Remember, they could be from the past as well.
Actually, Wayne Sleep would have been a very good Peter Pan.
You can have Wayne Sleep.
Wayne Sleep, we'd all have to be a lot younger, wouldn't we?
Well, yes, we can.
Peter Pan, Wayne Sleep as Peter Pan and Peggy Mount as Wendy. That would be good.
That would be great.
Yes. Oh God, no, because we knew Peggy. We kept in touch with Peggy after the pantomime, and Carol made a lot of her clothes for her. Extraordinary character. That's extraordinary.
Well, John, thank you so much for taking part in the Panto podcast.
Not at all. Thanks for asking me. I'm sorry I wasn't very good at the end there, because there's so many names all crowding in on me and thinking, I don't know. It's a very difficult question, though.
I know. Well, we don't
It's like what's the favourite episode of Only Fools and Horses? I can't possibly say, except for all the ones I was in. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to go away from here and I'm going to think of a whole cast of people. But I can't. It's just.
You can always let people know on your Twitter.
Yeah, sure.
Well, thanks so much, John.
Okay, great pleasure. Cheers. Thanks.